All right, welcome to the Magdalene Monarch podcast. We have Christopher here today. This is the very first podcast I'm recording. Thank you, Christopher, for coming on today and joining me and kind of being my test subject with throwing myself into this whole podcast thing. So I appreciate it. Uh,
You're very welcome.
yeah. So basically, I just kind of want to talk about you know, some of our awakening journey, our experiences in life and in like the spiritual world. We both have a huge interest in the starseed phenomenon, so I'd really like to dive into that. And so yeah, so how, let's just jump right in here. So when did you come, I guess, across the whole term or subject about star seeds and like what resonated with you and what kind of information did you uncover and like send you on your journey?
Yeah, so it was 2020, and we just had the lockdown phenomenon, all that was going on with the lockdown. And yeah, I just remember being sort of like depressed. It was sort of a weird feeling. I felt really lost in my life and upset with who I was, with what I was doing in my life. I couldn't stand to look at myself in the mirror. And it was crazy, really, because I just decided to sort of look up to the sky. I didn't really believe in anything as such at the time, but I thought to myself, I actually said out loud, "Help me." Don't know who I was speaking to, but I just know that I needed help because I didn't like who I was. And then ever since that moment, it was like a never-ending sort of downloads and experiences and honestly amazing experiences. My life was never the same after me saying help me. I got into sort of like time traveling at first and started to watch all these conspiracy theories about how people time traveled, and that's what I used to do, the washing up at home. And when I was doing the washing up, I used to listen to sort of time traveling videos and stuff like that. And then I just got a fascination with like other beings. I don't like calling them aliens, like other beings, out of nowhere, really. It was like everybody else, it was seeing grey aliens, like everybody, I think, starts with greys. There are usual, you know, beings that people turn to. And then I was listening to like how they debunked the UFOs and stuff and all that phenomena. And then one day I heard the term starseed, and I remember getting all sort of goosebumps
Hmm.
everywhere. And oh, okay, what does this word mean? I want to dive deep into the word starseed. No idea what it meant at the time. Um, and then it explained sort of it's your soul, a soul who's been on other planets, and you're in this physical body now. And I was like, okay, that's really fascinating. Let's dive into that because I've never really felt like I belong here, and I do feel a bit alienated, to my fellow human beings who I'm close to. And then yeah, it was just sort of, what is a star seed? Found out what one is, and then it was like, right, okay, um, who are these other beings? So that started to discover Acturians, Palladians, Andromedans, etc. And to be honest, it was quite frustrating because every single sort of, it could have been, for example, it could have been Orion, it could have been Syrian, it could have been Acturian. They all resonated, which was frustrating because it's like, which one then? Where have I been? Why am I resonating with every single one? Um, Later down the line, obviously I know why now, but at the time it was frustrating because people used to put comments, "I'm this, I'm that," and I'm still like, I could be any of these.
Hmm.
But yeah, in a nutshell, that's how I found out, through personal trauma, really, and personal sadness brought me to the point of enlightenment.
Yeah. So that's really interesting because I kind of my whole I guess Kundalini experience, which kind of like ties in with all of this, um also happened to me after I was like in a really difficult place in life, and it was also right after the pandemic, and I literally like prayed to God or the angels or the universe or whatever for help. And I've heard a lot of people say like once you do ask for help, like divine assistance, then that's
Yeah,
when the ball really gets rolling and like something intervenes in your life. So I think that's super interesting because a lot of people think that especially if you start looking at like Christianity, for instance, a lot of people, because I didn't come from a Christian background, so like it all that stuff sounds like so bizarre and illogical and far out there, but then when you experience it yourself, it's really crazy to know that
yeah,
you're not alone, and to feel totally supported and connected to the universe or God, whatever it may be, is just like totally changes your entire outlook on life, um, and like trajectory. Because after experiencing those things, I feel like you can't just go back to how things were before because your mind has just gone in a totally different, I don't want to say like dimension, but yeah, like there's like a saying that says once you've stretched your mind out, in a certain way, like you can't get it back into that little box. So that's really interesting to hear that. Yeah, and then the label thing, I think a lot of people get really caught up with the label, like, am I Pleiadian, am I Andromedan, am I this or that? And people get really like kind of obsessed with, well, what is this particular thing, and then I over identifying with it. um and then I had shared, I still don't, I mean, I kind of connect with the Palladians more so than any of the other ones, but then I had shared with you last time the mantis. I believe I've been connecting with the mantis, which is like so, I think, strange and far out there. um yeah, and kind of just like learning to trust like your gut and your intuition, because if you allow yourself to say, well, that's too weird, that doesn't make sense, or like that's not possible, then that really closes you off to having
yeah,
more experiences, because then well, then also I think it might even bring like fear into it too, because and I've heard that they won't interact with you if you have any kind of fear towards them, just because that's like part of their I don't know, soul contract, or like universal law. Like if they sense that you're afraid, they're not gonna connect with you. So being open and not like tying yourself to some particular label is, I think, important in your on your journey.
yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, with me as well, I found out later down the line that I've actually incarnated as a grey and maybe even as a draconian. And I'm like, wait, hang on, hang on. Everybody says that they're evil, and like, does this mean I'm a bad person? And
Yeah.
oh, down the line, and you actually do your research and actually look within, you realize that no, it's the soul within that matters. And even if you have incarnated as if this is like a reptilian um starseed who's listening to this video, you're not a bad person. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean nothing really. It's just the experiences that you've chosen to have.
Oh yeah, completely. I'm glad you brought that up. Because I used to say the same thing, and everyone um gets so obsessed with like, okay, reptilians are all evil, they're all bad, they're all you know, murdering and bloodthirsty and negative, basically. Um, so someone I really respect, James Gilliland, I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's like extremely well respected in the UFO community. He has his own ranch called Aseti Ranch. And I feel like he's one of the most legitimate sources of information on UFOs. So he's also said the same thing, like for
Mhm.
most of the ET races, just like human beings, there are good and there are bad within
Mhm.
those races. There's all not all reptilians are evil, not all even like Palladians, not all Palladians are good. I think there's good and bad in both on both sides. So yeah, so that can close you off to experiences too if you are just judging anything that comes into your field immediately.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's interesting. And then I've heard also that there are benevolent even reptilians working for the betterment of humanity within whatever they're doing with their the other groups. They're trying to awaken, they're trying to do positive things um to like release some of the control that the reptilians do have. So
Yeah.
that's yeah, I don't know.
And with
I'm sure some people would disagree with that, but that's what I believe is going on.
Oh yeah, 100%. And what I've heard as well, which I really truly believe, is some of the reptilians are really master healers. And I suppose it makes sense on the grand scheme of things. If you think of like, they can be really, this is for any soul, really, they can be really, really negative and nasty or whatever you want to call it. But on the other end of that, we've all got the light source in us as well. That, other end of the negative is beautiful. Is master healing, is so caring and benevolent, and all those beautiful things that we talk about what go with the term benevolent. So yeah, I do believe that it is the soul within, and over the last year, it's really taught me to not just, if I see something in meditation or see something in dreams or whatever, to speak to them before I say no. I don't want to see you. I don't want to speak to you, because it could be the most fascinating experience that you'll ever have.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Um yeah, so I guess that's what I've learned a lot on this journey too is like to learn to trust what comes up either like in your subconscious mind or dreams or meditations, that kind of thing. Like I've experienced multiple times where like I'll get a sense of something, but it's not like, you're not using your 3D senses. So it's not totally like concrete, like, okay, that definitely was going on. But then if you learn to kind of trust it and interpret it using like your expanded senses, and then I've had like people in meditation groups say, oh, I also saw that flash of light at that exact moment, and you're just like, oh my God, like that's crazy. Learning to trust your intuition and like fine tuning those skills to realize like, okay, I can trust that even if it sounds weird. So it's like a skill that you develop over time, is like really learning to trust your like interpretation of um things you're experiencing, because once you have an awakening, it's not just coming through like the you know physical senses anymore. So really learning to trust that, I think, is a huge skill.
Yeah, I mean, and I've heard many times as well that life is about different perspectives, and there is no sort of meaning to life. It's the meaning that you give to life, and a lot of these sort of um, beings that a lot of people will class as negative or whatever, just have their own ideas, their own philosophies, perspectives of life, and they don't actually want to. No, they don't actually think that they're doing any harm. And that's where we come into sort of duality as well, which I'm really, really fought hard to not be in like any side, and just try and understand and have compassion for everything that lives. But yeah, it's such a shame, by the way, because we had a recording recorded, didn't we, for my own channel, and yeah, me being the silly me that I am, didn't record the volume, the audio, and it was the most fascinating chat, wasn't it?
Yeah. Honestly, I think there might have been some kind of interference. Because that happens to me a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
So we
when
got to be careful what we talk about then.
yeah, I just feel like sometimes there's like when you are trying to put something out there that is going to make like a difference or a big impact, especially if it's like going against a particular agenda, I definitely think beings can try to try to interfere with you, and then that's like a big part of the spiritual world too that I think people don't understand. There's like so much going on that you cannot see with your eyes, and it's just as real as what's going on here in the like 3D realm. So that's what I've been trying to learn more about as well. Like praying every day for physical, spiritual protection, you know, in the astral and the ethers, and just like anytime I'm doing something that I think could possibly be interfered with, I do say a prayer and put like a pyramid of gold or white light around me and around the situation, um or a you know, a Taurus. And that it's crazy because years ago I would have thought that's absolutely nuts. um but yeah, that's just like part of mastering it, is like realizing that you have control over your experiences for the most part, so you can like tell those spirits or entities or whatever that you do not consent to being interfered with, and just completely getting into your power and protecting your field, not just in the physical but like in the astral realm, in the you know, all the different bodies we have, like an emotional body, a physical body, a etheric body. So just learning as you kind of level up on your journey to you know, just command your own field and space,
Yeah.
and to not allow interferences.
And also with a lot of people as well who still have the ego very high. The ego can sort of transform an experience to make it seem like a negative one, and then it's not actually that negative. And you'll say like, "Oh, it's the worst experience ever." I went to this, for example, say like they went into a spaceship in their dream state, and oh, it was awful. They did this, they did that, but majority of the time, it's usually the ego. I mean, maybe there has been disturbing things that's happened to him, but it will be if you think it is, it will be.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know how you feel about that, but yeah, because my dreams are very different. I could have the same dream as I did now 4 years ago, and I'd feel completely different about it. So 4 years ago, I used to wake up sweating in the bed,
Mhm.
and it was like I'd been on a spaceship, seeing grey aliens, and I would absolutely like I couldn't go back to sleep. I'd be shaking. But then 4 years later, if I had the same dream, I'd be like, oh, okay, well, this happened and that happened, and it's just a completely different because you're looking
Yeah,
at it differently.
definitely. Yeah, because pretty much everything is perception, and it's crazy to think about, like, and I think that's part of the whole spiritual lens like through life, is like something, you know, this really negative or fearful thing happened to me, and it was terrible and I hated it and I don't want it to happen again, and it's causing all these negative things for me. But like if you can look at it from a different lens, is and that's where like the learning experiences come in. It's like, okay, well, what if I try to like remove the fear from that situation? What was what were the lessons? um like, did it make me stronger? Like, I had the past couple weeks, I had some stuff going on in my personal life that was really stressing me out and like throwing me back down into the abyss. But then I like conquered those things psychologically, and like now I feel great. Like I feel like a freaking like warrior, you know, because at the time it sounds like it's the most horrible thing ever, and you're like, why is this happening to me? You know, I don't want this, I don't deserve this, whatever. But then like when you get out on the other end of it and you realize that you can get through it, you're just like a whole nother person. So like you can really kind of percept that with almost any situation.
Yeah. There was a philosopher years ago, I can't remember who it was, but he said something like, um, treat darkness like it's your best friend. And I love that quote because it's very true. If you go against the negative things that's happening in your life, then you'll never ever learn. And I'm a big believer in we're here to live a fascinating experience of both angles and both God looking at life in different ways. And yeah, I used to hate negative experience and sort of trying to control my life so there was no negativity at all.
Yeah.
But since letting go, going day by day, actually thanking the negative experience or thanking the horrible days that we have, because we all have them, I think, oh, well, that's great. That's been a really good day because tomorrow I can take what I've learned today into my life and shift my life again.
Yeah.
But it's only through sort of like going through them experiences and going through the negativity and actually, you know what, like you said before, conquering what you think that you couldn't do. And once you've done it, you're like, wow, like you said, like, wow, look at me now. I'm a superhero.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah. So there's a term called post-traumatic growth, which I think is like an actual term within I don't know if it's clinical psychology or the psychology field, so like the, academic whatever professional field. And it's basically they look at like people who've been through a lot of trauma and then come out like thriving and like not just like making the most out of like whatever they've been through, but like sometimes even going beyond that, like people that have been through horrible, horrible trauma and then like becoming totally on top, like using those experiences as complete motivation. Which like I had kind of experienced, after losing, my mom was like a severe alcoholic for 10 years. I lived at my parents' house and it was just so traumatizing to see a parent killing themselves with alcohol. And then obviously a lot of situations come up when people are going through that. And, I like threw myself into school because that was like, okay, well, that was like my ticket out of getting out of that situation was like, well, I can throw all of my energy into um, studying and stuff. And then sometimes people go the opposite direction where they're just like, this is happening to me. I hate my life. Like getting into like the victim mentality, basically, and then getting into like drugs and alcohol and then spiraling that way, which I totally can understand too. But like if you can kind of take those negative experiences and use that as like fuel um to come out on top and become better or like to help others, I think is really motivating too. Like that's basically why I wanted to become a psychologist, was to like really understand why people do the things they do. Especially like in my mom's case with alcoholism. It's not just like they call it a disease. Like if you go to AA meetings and stuff like that, they try to call it a disease. Um, I was trained and I have my bachelor's in sociology, so I look at everything through like a social lens first. Um so like the environment and then like what is causing that person to um you don't just wake up in the morning and need to drink vodka at, you know, 6 a.m. Like something is driving you to do that. And, in my mom's case, it was severe trauma that was never addressed. So if those kind of things, shitty stuff happens to you, it happens to everybody, but you let it sit in your subconscious and you don't process it, you don't do anything with it. And like, alcoholism or alcohol is kind of like a bandage to the feelings that arise out of those uncomfortable memories or situations, and then you can get those feelings to go away temporarily with alcohol. or drugs, but then you're just burying them deeper and deeper until the addiction takes you over, basically. So,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, um, I have done a little bit of that myself. I've never took drugs, but I have been a sort of like I won't say a big drinker, but weekend drinker to escape. It was all escapism, but
yeah,
escapism is quite interesting because people think it's just um, just alcohol or just drugs, but it's really interesting how many ways you can escape. You can go on consoles, PlayStations. You can, because I've done that in the past. I've just gone on the PlayStation and pretended it's not happening, but it is happening. And you wake up the next day and it's even stronger, smack in your face. Like, you can't ignore it. You've got to face it. But yeah, there's quite a few escapism tools that people do. I mean, even sex.
yeah,
Men who single men, and they've got issues about a breakup. They'll just go and have sex with so many different women. That's also escapism. They're
yeah.
not
Or
facing the
porn.
heartbreak.
Porn is a huge problem in that
Oh
same.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, 100%. Yeah, which
yeah.
is it's awful. But yeah, you better just. I think those people as well. It's a shame because they're so lost that they've forgot who they are. They've forgot the connection to source, and they're lonely. They're sad, and that's the way they deal with it. But and it's understandable because we come so far away, and Earth is everything's happening on Earth. Everything you can imagine. Everybody's got their own situations going on, and it is understandable, and that's why you can't judge someone because they've literally come down here to lose themselves on purpose to have that experience.
Oh, completely.
Yeah, and some people choose to remember, which is awesome. When you remember, it's the best feeling of your life because you go from life's happening to me to actually thinking, no, actually life's happening for me. It's one word in between that sentence, which changes your life.
Oh,
It changes
100%.
your
I love
mindset.
that phrase. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and if it's happening to you, you sulk, don't you? You're miserable. You go into that victim mentality, like you said before. But if it's happening for you, nothing can harm you. Nothing to be scared about. Just go on with your life, let go, have fun, and use every experience to your advantage.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think the huge thing there is, and like because I've seen it studying positive psychology, is like the notion of having autonomy over your environment and your emotions, your what's going on in your life. I think it's called locus of control. So it's like when you feel like you have no control over your life, that's when you slip into those feelings. Because then you feel like, okay, well, I have no control over my own life, and all these things are happening to me, and they're all negative, and how am I ever going to get out of these things? And why does this kind of stuff always happen to me? Um, that's what gets people down that hole. Is because that's a genuine human, spiritual need, is having autonomy over yourself, your soul, your body, your circumstances. So that's a huge thing, is like, and it's all kind of like mental gymnastics, basically, because it's perception. Um, so if you can train your mind to look at things a different way, or like really, and that's what like meditation is about, and like looking at Tibetan Buddhism and that kind of thing, is like allowing yourself to witness the thoughts that come into your mind and realizing that's not you, those are thoughts. And how can I try to change that situation, change my thoughts a little bit, change my mindset, my perspective? And like that's everything. And they've found that all that stuff can influence even your physical health, down to the cellular level, because it's all there's books on like the connection between um like emotions literally producing either positive neurochemicals in your brain or negative, stress hormones, or positive hormones, that come in when you're experiencing connection with another person or nature or God. Like that is what our brains are wired to need and want. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, meditation. Do you meditate?
So I don't do it in the traditional sense where I'm like sitting in a dark room and like total quiet, but like I go into like usually it's like a creative state where
Yeah.
I'm I'm like awake, but I'm kind of like daydreaming basically is
Oh,
how I meditate. Yeah. What about
yeah.
you?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, meditation changed my life. It's probably one of the, I'd say, top three things I've ever done that was like, yes, so thank God I did that because it changed everything. I was very, um, I'm always up here and I'm such, not to sound sort of like arrogant, but I'm very switched on. So I
Uh-huh.
can think about six, seven, eight things at once. And
Yeah.
I'll be in a conversation, but I'm already thinking about what I'm doing tomorrow. Like,
Mhm.
so to calm my mind down was great. I had to really like ground myself onto earth because God, I was everywhere. Like I was so multi-dimensional. Like my brain, my mind was just yeah, all over the place. So to meditate and to ground myself and to calm my mind and think about as well, like you said, all these thoughts. That's not my thought. That's not the way I think. Okay, and observe them rather than judging them. Yeah, it's an amazing. And what I love about meditation as well, because you just hit the nail on the head there with yours. You just said that you do like a different style of meditation. I mean, that's great. That is such a good thing because we don't really know. There's no normality to meditate. There's no standard way to meditate. I I prefer to lie down, comfortable, and turn the lights off and listen to guided meditations. But just because that works for me doesn't mean it will work for you. And I've had people say like, "Oh, meditation doesn't work." And I say, "Well, yeah, have you tried it?" And they'll say, "Yeah, I lie down and I turn all the lights off." And I'm like, "Well, that's just only one way. You can literally walk down the park and concentrate and focus on your breath and the way you're walking, one foot after the other, or you can listen to music. That's if I'm going to channel, the best way I channel is listen to rock music in the gym. It, like that's not normal. Like I don't know anybody else who listens to like heavy metal rock music, and I
Well,
can connect
so
to
yeah, sorry to cut you off there. So that just reminds me, like, so when you shamans do shamanic journeying, they will do drumming or some kind of, like repetitive but relaxing. I guess rock music isn't relaxing, but they get themselves into that, and it's all brain waves. So they're like getting themselves into the theta brain waves, which is where meditation, imagination, creativity, and all of those things live. It's literally and daydreaming, that kind of thing. So to me, I live a lot of my life in that realm because that's the creative realm. And but that's also where like your subconscious mind lives. So then you can also, like, if you learn how to master that, you can use it to reprogram your mind and manifest things. Um
yeah.
so it's all very interesting. And I just want to let you know we have about 3 minutes left.
Okay, cool.
The time
Okay.
goes so fast in our
It
conversation.
really does. It really does. I think me and you could sit there and speak for 2 hours and it'd be absolutely fine.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
it's cool.
definitely a lot of resonance.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, it's just I I wish you could just like get these concepts into like I mean they are kind of in the mainstream. That's why those books are so popular, like the self-help books and Dr. Joe Dispenza and that kind of thing. Because you can literally change your entire life. It's all like in here, you know.
Yes. 100%.
And it
It's not.
sounds so simple, but obviously it's not simple, but it's like you have everything that you need within you already. Like you don't need outside things. It's just like a matter of training yourself. You can train your mind, like, some people train physically, you can also train your mind.
Yeah,
and
we
strengthening.
have all the answers. We do. And that's like reason why we incarnate in many different planets, situations, experiences to get so we're here and we're like, oh, how do we do this? We've already done it.
Yeah.
And I know life's happening all at once, everywhere. But yeah, we have all the answers. And yeah, for me, just to go back to the channeling thing, it's majority just passion. So when I'm training, I'm very passionate, and that passion sort of uplifts my vibration. And
Mhm.
then I'm like, wow, I can actually see. Sounds really bizarre to say, but I'm there training, lifting weights, and I can see spirit guides, or I can hear ancestors, or whatever, and they'll say, "Oh, we're with you, we're watching you," And it's mainly through passion.
Yeah.
That's another way to channel as well and communicate.
Well, have you heard, that makes perfect sense. Have you heard of flow state? Like
Yes,
FLOW. So I
yes,
think about that a lot too, because I used to kind of, when I was in school, it happened to me a lot because I would get into my creative zone and I was in flow state. And that's when you're in the zone, you're only focusing on whatever it is that you're doing there now. You're not somewhere else and you're enjoying it. So you're producing like um positive neurochemicals because you're enjoying yourself. You're passionate about something, you feel focused, you feel um like you have a purpose in that moment. So like I love to get into that space
yeah,
where you're just like focused on, and you get, I
yeah,
feel like you get connected, you're connecting to source basically, you're like in your little field, in your little zone. So yeah, I think
yeah,
that's kind of what you're accessing when you're, in your case, working out.
yeah.
um yeah.